Whew. All right, y'all. This episode's going to be a bit of an emotional one for me. And I am just going to embrace that. It has been a very dynamic, emotional week for me. And by dynamic, I mean lots of lows and also highs, lots of anger, lots of sadness, also lots of bravery over this last week. And yeah, this episode is going to be really, most of all, for those of you listening, that really felt as devastated this last week and experienced this range of emotions with the results of the election in the US. And, I want to start the episode by just saying, I feel so lucky to get to add my voice to the dialogue right now out in the world, because I can confidently say, with a lot of certainty, that way more than most people, I have an intimate ground zero view of what patriarchy is actually doing to us, to both women and men in our world. And that's because I get to have intimate, very personal, behind the scenes glimpses into relationships, into the point where women are coming to me so unhappy in their marriages that they are at the point of considering divorce. So it feels really, I just want to take a moment to be like, yeah, I absolutely have a right to speak in this space. Having coached women in these spots for over 4 years now, having seen the themes and the trends, having been calling this out for a while in my own coaching, and then this last year in my podcast, just trying to say, look, it is not selling everybody what it seems like it's selling. I want to start the episode off by saying that, and to also say, to those of you that may be listening that maybe were not devastated this last week or do not understand what all of this grief is about, I also feel like I have an incredible perspective on that as well, because, 7 years ago, or even if you go back to when Trump was elected the first time, I was upset about him being elected for who he was, but not so much about understanding the policies that would affect me as a woman. I did not understand that piece. And I knew why now looking back. I didn't understand that because in 2016, I was still married. I had not started therapy yet. I was really in the throes of just starting to wake up to the trauma I had experienced from the patriarchal way of living that we have in our world at the moment here in America. And I was just starting to wake up to the very severe consequences and effects of that in my life, that in me being asked, in many ways brainwashed and forced to abandon myself as a woman to fit into that world. I was just starting to wake up to the depression, the suicidal ideation, the having all the pretty things, having the money and the white privilege and the husband and the kids and all the things that look so nice, that actually on the inside were incredibly super fucking empty deep down underneath. And looking back now, I can see how, all of that brainwashing from being in the Mormon cult, in a patriarchal world from birth, in being taught, in Mormonism, women are not allowed to hold the priesthood, only men are. Like, that was just part of my world. And I was under the illusion of, believing that men really are the ones that are supposed to be in power. Or as, my dear friend Quinn this last week told me, one of her sisters said to her, like, oh, we can't have a woman as president. Women are too emotional. I was just like, oh my God. This is just like the heart and soul of misogyny, of women not seeing themselves, being internally taught to hate themselves. So I also come from that perspective of having been someone who was raised heavily in that environment, and now through the epic journey I've been on, for those of you listening to the podcast over the last 7 years, has a very, as you guys know now, a very different perspective. And as I just stated, an intimate view into what is actually, what patriarchy is actually getting us in our relationships. And so I just want to break that down. This episode is actually not going to be, the episode I'd originally planned. Y'all, I had an episode written earlier last week that was like standing strong against the tide, like protecting our freedoms. It was very go, go, go. And so I do need to take a little bit of time at the beginning of this episode just to like, as I'm doing now, to express some of that. But the majority of the episode is going to be actually a very different feeling, where I kind of landed today, and something that's come up throughout all of last week. But I do just want to illuminate a little bit more some of these things that I've seen that I think need to be said for sure. And that's understanding that, when I keep saying I have a particular special view into what patriarchy is actually creating, that's because I get to get on calls with women where over and over and over, why they are wanting to leave their marriages are these very things. Are feeling repressed in their individuality, feeling like they cannot be in a, fully expressed mutuality where the power dynamics are, you are an equal, I am an equal setup. More and more, I'm seeing women in like strong gender rolled marriages not being able to swallow that anymore. And these dynamics, these power imbalances that ultimately harm everyone. And that's because it may seem like it's so great to be on top, but what I'm seeing is these men are getting the things that they want, not from a space of true connection and loyalty, but from fear. And I don't see that being where I want that to not be the world that we are headed into, a world where we continue to be okay with allegiance just from fear. And like I said, I see over and over women that are saying like, no more, that are awake enough to say, I want to be with someone that I actually respect rather than I'm just afraid of. And like the number one thing that is ending these marriages is this feeling of having partners that are stunted and emotionally immature. And these really toxic, old guard, that's what I'm going to call it, power dynamics that actually end up destroying the real intimacy and trust that I believe all humans are deeply hungry for. And this is really, I'm going to probably do an episode on this in the future as I dive more deeply into this, but I want to make clear that when I say patriarchy, I do not mean masculinity, because I think we deeply need, I know we need mature masculinity more than ever right now. What I am speaking of is the immature boy psychology of patriarchy that is, quote, the stunted masculine fixated at immature levels using abusive and violent acting out behaviors against others. And that is why, hopefully, framing this out for those of you that maybe weren't as devastated by those results last week, this is what that election meant to me. That choice landed for me as my country choosing, as over half of the country choosing to uphold and be for those kinds of relationships. And it was very difficult to have the illusion removed, right? The illusion that we were ready for more mutuality, for more being able to respect and meet people eye to eye instead of these power over dynamics. And I went through vacillations of moments of just like deep, deep despair, and then moments of just like, okay, let's go. We've got this. I'm ready. I've got, I'm already doing the work, and I will do more of the work. And, but where I have ultimately landed today and this week was just this deep permission to slow down and to pause and to feel. So I want to move into the rest of the episode by gently inviting those of you listening to really just take a deep breath and let go of any pressure right now to be strong or productive or to stand up and push back. And instead to just create a space where it is okay to be tired, to grieve, and to feel the weight of things as they are. Because for those of us that have been doing the work, right? I think 7 years ago, I didn't feel this grief because I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't trying to change things. I wasn't trying to stand up for women's voices. I was in that world of being protected by proximity to patriarchy. And now I've taken a very different path, getting divorced, being a single woman, not being part of a patriarchal cult anymore, which only protects the women that are in it. I understand more now what it feels like to be in a system that does not protect you, to feel in a very tiny way, right? I'm waking up to what so many people in our world have felt for hundreds of years, and I'm speaking specifically of LGBTQ individuals, of African American, of Latino and Latinas. Like, wow, what a different feeling it is when you wake up to living in a country where you're like, oh my God, I really don't think the government is here to protect me. And so for those that have been doing this work, and I want to like honor and respect that there are so many out there that have been doing this far, 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 far longer than me. To just say though, to those of us in that space that have been doing the work, and like I said, mine's only been in like the last 5 to 7 years of actually doing the hard work of waking up to my racism, waking up to my misogyny, waking up to my white privilege, and being willing to put myself to put myself on the line to speak out. I actually was like attacked this last week when I spoke up in a conscious community that I was a part of. I'm no longer now. I was vehemently attacked by men in that community that I was being clear were using these modes of silencing women's voices and trying to make it seem like they shouldn't be bringing their sadness here because this needs to be a safe space. And when I called it out, once again, I saw just how much the patriarchy is alive and well. That toxic boy psychology of I will scream at you, yell at you, fight you down, tell you you're insignificant, tell you we don't need you here, minimize your pain, and call you a liar, to ultimately silence you. So I am getting, once again, like even more of a taste of the illusion being taken away, right? I think I also thought in that community, because it was what I would consider more of a conscious community, that would be a different response. And to see the response I got was like, wow, nope, we are still very much in the throes of all of this. And so where I came to was just wanting to normalize like the exhaustion and the heaviness of when you are doing like your own work to heal trauma, to be different, to try and create a better world. And that it is normal to feel that exhaustion and heaviness, that these are valid responses when you are confronted with a world that has been painful, and that, by the current choices being made will move into even more pain. And that is just, I do believe that is part of like consciousness evolving and consciousness growing up. Sometimes we have to go into more pain to be ready to get out. And that was really my journey, right? It was only through my own pain, through the system not working for me and actually leading me to a place of deep, deep darkness and unhappiness. Wow, I've got everything the patriarchy said I should have. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have a fuck ton of money. And then being like, I'm more miserable than I've ever been, that I was finally willing, right? Willing to do the hard deep dives of looking at the unpretty parts of my self, of my history, of my lineage as a white woman. So I really think that this pause that I hope we'll get to do a little bit in this episode is powerful and actually a huge act of strength in itself. To just, instead of rushing immediately into the we will overcome and we will succeed and we will triumph, to just pull back in and to grieve together and allow space for really acknowledging the weight that those of us that are doing the work feel in this moment. So I wanted to share with you all, one of the ways that this really came up for me was noticing this week just how like it really depends on the day how I end up feeling when I wake up. And on Sunday morning, I really woke up once again with just this like deep sadness. I could actually tell I was already in an emotional flashback, which makes a lot of sense. I've realized that having Trump be elected actually takes me back to a lot of like my childhood feelings of having a person in power over me that does not care about my feelings, that does not care about my desires, and that ultimately can do whatever they want. So that was what was really prompting that feeling of like fear and hopelessness and helplessness that morning. So I got up to journal and try and kind of coach myself through what was happening. And I found myself writing, I'm too fucked up to fix all of this. And as I started to explore that thought, I realized there was just a lot of grief coming up. And this is like a typical, I would say this is like a typical survivor of abuse response, right? Of because you can't fix the external, you start to internalize that kind of like self-hatred, right? Of like, I'm too fucked up. The problem is me. And instead, like really trying to sit with some of my own grief around my trauma from the system, grief that I had. I'm experiencing a lot of difficulty at the moment with understanding like how to parent my son, my 14-year-old son. And I'm just seeing more and more how complex his emerging manhood is and grieving the world he's growing up in and what it is teaching him about being a man and how unprepared I feel to be able to hold space for that while also doing all the other things that I'm trying to do in my life. This is the whole like, I'm raising myself while I'm simultaneously raising him, while I'm making space for other women raising themselves. Like it was just a lot. And so after I kind of opened up and kind of leaned into the like, okay, like this is me, maybe not in the space so much of like I'm fucked up, but in the like I am imperfect and this is what is. I then moved into the space where I started to question that thought of like, I'm too fucked up to fix all of this. And I really sat with the fear and like looked at that dragon of like, oh my God, I really can't. Like, as much as my strong, like Capricorn moon, Capricorn ascendant is like, I got this. If I just believe it enough, if I just work hard enough, it will change. I had to sit with like, oh my God, like on my own, I cannot change the whole world. It's too big. I cannot be everything to everyone. I cannot be everything for my kids and everything for the collective and everything for the entire world. And as I sat with that and really kind of questioned that feeling, I was able to start setting down this pressure that had been building all week to like have to rise up and fix it all again. And I really want us to like notice and reflect on this collective nature of this pain that I think is especially poignant for women, of this feeling like for centuries, women have been pushed to keep going, to serve, to withstand, to dig deep. They are always the ones that are scraping the bottom of the bowl so that everybody else gets what they need. They are always the ones doing the emotional caretaking, the emotional, processing of the collective. And to, in this moment, to just feel my right to say that for right now, to feel almost kind of like the beauty in just sitting with my grief and my feelings of I can't fix all of this without forcing myself to get up again, to transform, to pull another, miracle out of the shitstorm. And where this led me was this beautiful moment where I went into my partner after I'd kind of like acknowledged like, oh my God, like I can't fix all of this. I literally just can't. I am a human. I don't have enough to fix all of the things in the world. I went in and found my partner and I was like, I just need to cry. And I buried, he was in bed and I just buried myself like up under his armpit, like down in his ribs. And I just cried. And then I started to pour it all out to him. And it was such a beautiful moment to watch him. So I know he's been hurting a lot this week as well. And I think both of us have been just kind of like doing what we do, which is just stepping up and holding space for others. And so as I started to really pour out the like, I can't be everything and I can't do this anymore, a little bit more of like the like, a little bit of I wouldn't say a full loss of hope, but a like, I'm just going to be in the full overwhelm and grief right now of what this moment means. And he got a little triggered. I could hear it in his voice with the like, you got to hang on and like, there's going to be better and like, we can do this. And I could feel his body tightening. And I was so just proud of the relationship we've built that in that moment, I just said to him, hey, I don't need you to fix this, right? Can you see how he was doing the same thing? Like that he needed to fix me in that moment. And that was so overwhelming for him. I said, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to witness me in my pain and overwhelm right now. And it was so beautiful. I felt his body soften. And it was like I felt our bodies soften into each other. And he just let me cry. And it was amazing how just letting myself be sad, letting myself be overwhelmed by that without trying to fix or feel hopeful or any of those other things was actually the very thing that opened that and made it possible. It was so wild, y'all. Like in that moment, as he let me just be fully seen with no fixing, I felt the full grief come through. It didn't even last that long. And then I just felt that merging of our hearts together, that feeling for both of us of the like, and we're going to be okay kind of thing without having to force it, right? Without the like, from the very start, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So I really wanted to emphasize in this episode the power of holding this kind of space for those we love right now that are grieving this, that there is so much power in the very simple but profound act of holding space for one another, whether that is just, being quiet and hearing someone or simply sitting in silence, holding another person. And to really say, like, I want to offer that we just don't need to immediately go into answers or strategies right now. And that sometimes like the most healing thing is simply knowing that we are not alone in how we feel. That was the moment. And Joe even, said as he was holding me, like he admitted when I said, I don't need you to fix this right now. He was like, yeah, I've been feeling the same way. So I hope that those of you that are hurting are able to give this kind of space to each other, to reach out to one another. I know this last week I had a few really close friends that were giving this to me, this compassion, this quiet support, this just knowing that they are there, knowing that, yeah, we already know, like we're gonna keep moving forward. We're already in this space doing this work. This is the lives we live. So it's not like that's going to change. But that we don't have to immediately like have this rallying cry, let's go. That if right now the feeling actually is more of this overwhelm and this sadness, that gets to have space too. And so the real message that I wanted to land most from this episode was that rest is also a form of resistance. That choosing when we are, individuals who have been in our daily lives working to heal, to change the collective, to be these voices moving the needle towards equality and mutuality and mature masculinity and femininity, that resting can be a radical act against what I feel is a very real societal pressure for women to always rise above, to always in the face of pain or injustice or people dismissing us, to always be able to be more. And as this goes, to the message that I've been hearing here and there, which I really am loving right now, which is this call to divest our energy, to really pull back and in, and to be soft and gentle with those that deserve us to be soft and gentle with them right now. For me, that has been a lot of like this last week. I could tell with the like me pressuring myself to like, okay, step up, be more, you're a leader, like, come on. I was losing my ability to be present in the moment, to be soft with those I love. I was so disconnected from my partner, Joe. I have to like, I want to say, disconnected in the framework of our relationship, because we are normally so incredibly like emotionally, mentally, physically synced up. And I was just so agitated all week. My nervous system was so on fire. My body felt like it was, in attack mode. And that it was really dropping back this weekend and realizing like, this is not a race. And I really have to come back into the only thing I have control over, which is me. And that I don't have to move forward until I'm ready. And when I do move forward, it gets to be in a way that feels supportive and healthy for me. And that right now, the most supportive thing for me is to pause, to take a break, and to trust that the time for rising will come naturally. And it already has. I even, as I'm saying, like to take a pause, here I am recording a podcast episode to go out to all of you, right? Like, but it's that so many of us that are already doing this work, we can feel that pressure to just keep, like now more than ever, to just keep going. And instead, I wanted to say, like, in this, what's obviously a much shorter episode this week, which is part of me taking care of myself, to just say, take the space to tend your hurting hearts, to be held and to hold those you love. If that is not the case for you right now, because I know so many of you are in the throes of considering divorce, to find those women that can hold you. And I would offer it's probably going to be women. And to just offer a huge lifeline to those of you that may be like, oh my God, I am not in the throes of, where I am at in my life, right? Being a leader, moving this work forward. And in fact, I feel completely isolated and I don't have anyone. That you do have those spaces. Like, I am so proud to know that the community that I have created is that very space. I met a woman on a 90-minute last week who lives in a rural town with like 600 people in it. And she talked about how scared she was of being isolated and ostracized and not understood if she decides to get divorced. And I was so proud to be able to say to her, here's your invite to the community. Like, we want you. Let's get you in there. Let's get you supported. Let's get you with other women who can hold space, who do not need to fix you, who do not need to change you, who can hold you wherever you are at. So if that is the case for you, those of you hoping and wanting to get into the community, I am going to be maybe towards the end of this month. I'm not going to be opening the community, but I am going to be opening up, being able to start scheduling interviews to get into the community. For those that I have not met on 90-minute sessions, that's part of the protocol for coming in. So I've got a really exciting podcast episode. In fact, 2 of them. I just recorded one right before this episode that will be dropping around the time that I open that up, where you'll be able to go in and start signing up, doing those interviews with me, from one of the amazing women that I started coaching at the very beginning of my journey, who was in the exact same situation, like completely isolated, no friends, no one supporting her, and is now a year and a half out of her marriage. Incredible story. I'm really excited. So it'll be the same time that I drop that episode is when I'll be opening up the community to start scheduling out those appointments. And those who pass that interview process, all of those interviews will be happening with me, will then go on a list. And then at the beginning of each month, those that are already on the list, that have already been vetted, that have already signed the documents, we have guidelines for the community, we have an NDA for the community, will be able to then join the community at the beginning of each month. So just know if you're like, I have no one, oh my God, that just makes me so sad. If you are feeling that way, like you do not have anyone, right? I have my partner now. I had someone to hold me all week long, to be there, to process with me. I have my best friends, Quinn and Lauren, and I have all the women in the community as well, to just feel that solidarity with. So if you are feeling very alone, very like you do not have, know that I see you, and it is coming, and access to the community. I'm getting to the point where I'm almost ready to, like I said, at the beginning of the new year is when it'll be January 1st when I open up the next round of letting women in. But even before then, I'm going to be doing interviews. So I really want to give that lifeline to those of you that may be kind of where I was at 5 to 6 years ago, just at the very beginning, waking up to the consequences of the patriarchal conditioning in my life. And when you're in that situation, you often are surrounded by people who all subscribe to that idea. So it can feel really isolating and really lonely. And that's the gift of having this community that is accessible to those of you needing that support. Whew, I'm so grateful I got to do this episode. I had been thinking all last week what I wanted to say. I did not want to let this moment pass without really adding my voice to the incredible dialogue going on. I have to say, I've seen so many people and voices out there that make me immensely proud, that make me feel very, very like, yeah, these are my people. These are people who understand, and that feels amazing to really find your tribe, to find people who see you and understand your pain and are not needing you to hide it or uh, pack it down so that they don't have to look at their own shadows. So I want to close by just saying, this week, I hope that we will all just in very small, nourishing ways take care of ourselves to, slow down, give your nervous system rest, stand in the grass, perhaps in the middle of the night, looking up at the stars, like letting yourself feel what is coming through, sitting quietly or taking moments of intentional solitude, and also connecting into the communities that are here for us. The communities, and even, maybe the one person that gets you or loves you in the way that you most want to be seen, right? In all your full, messy, I don't need to be fixed, I am not broken ways. And here's to really utilizing, I believe, for whatever comes ahead, this foundation of using rest as resistance to saying no to the patriarchal ways of go, 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 going, and always having to rise above and always having to overcome. We're going to do this a different way. And I'm so also excited to, in the future, to collaborate. And I've seen so much of that coming out of our communities becoming even closer knit, of connections that wouldn't have happened previously coming out of this. And that makes me super excited about the infrastructures that are becoming even more connected now, through this pain, right? There are beautiful things that can come out of pain and will. And I am excited to access them after taking as much resistant rest as I need. So, to that, I will leave all of you with that message, and I will see you on our next episode.